Hello everyone, and welcome back to Conspiraseed. Today we're on part 1 of tier 3 of the Disturbing Video Games Iceberg. In case you don't know what an iceberg is, or this is your first iceberg video, the most well-known stuff with whatever the iceberg is categorizing is at the top, with the least well-known or most mysterious stuff at the bottom. We're on tier 3, so there's going to be some mysterious things. In fact, one of the games that we're going to talk about today is considered one of the rarest games of all time. If you like the video, remember to leave a like and share with your friends. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with me today, and let's get into it. Echo Knight is a trilogy of Japanese adventure games developed by the legendary FromSoft. FromSoft being the developers of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, of course. The game is a first-person game and places a focus on puzzles and exploration. The original Echo Knight began as an experimental game. The second game was created around the theme of quiet horror, and the third game was developed by a staff of around 70 people. The series has generally been met with mixed reception, and because of that, it has remained obscure. The original Echo Knight released in 1998 and was released on the PlayStation. The game revolves around Richard Osmond. The second game, Echo Knight 2: The Lord of Nightmares, released in 1999. The third, and currently the final entry of the game, Echo Knight Beyond, was released in 2004. There are common elements around each game, however, each one takes place in its own timeline. The shared elements are that the protagonist is always named Richard, the main gameplay and narrative element of interacting with ghosts, and the use of a magical artifact. Haunting Ground is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom for the PlayStation 2 in 2005. Capcom also made Resident Evil and Clock Tower from Tier 1. The story follows a young woman named Fiona Belly who wakes up in the dungeon of a castle after being involved in a car accident. She quickly befriends a white shepherd dog, Huey, and begins to explore the castle with his aid and seek a means of escape and unravel the mysteries of it and its inhabitants. The game shares many similarities with Capcom's earlier survival game, Clock Tower 3, and has actually been described as the spiritual successor to the Clock Tower series. The player controls Fiona as she explores the environment, evades and hides from enemy pursuers, and occasionally fights against the castle's inhabitants. Sometimes, in what I think is a very cool gameplay mechanic, Fiona will panic when in danger, in which case she begins to run on her own and the player has very limited control. Huey is a central part of the gameplay and accompanies Fiona throughout the game. He can be given orders to explore the environment, attack enemies, and otherwise aid in Fiona's survival. Capcom added the dog mechanic during development, thinking that retailers and players alike would not enjoy a survival horror game with a lone female protagonist. The game was released in April 2005 and received mixed reviews. The graphics and presentation were praised, but critics found the gameplay repetitive, predictable, and derivative of previous horror titles. The game's voyeuristic nature and the objectification of Fiona were actually highlighted by critics as a highlight of the game, saying that exposing her as a vulnerable object of desire, the game makes her, and therefore the player, feel more fragile and endangered, building a more disturbing atmosphere. Bad Mojo is an adventure game by Pulse Entertainment, released in 1996. The game revolves around Roger Sams, an entomologist planning to embezzle money from a research grant to escape his sad life above an abandoned bar. An accident with his mother's enchanted locket unleashes a curse called Bad Mojo that turns him into a cockroach. The storyline is loosely based on Franz Kafka's novel, The Metamorphosis, and Roger Sam's name is based on the main character of the book, named Gregor Samsa. There's also a cat named Franz that appears in the game. The gameplay consists of guiding the cockroach through a series of puzzles. The game on Steam has very positive reviews, and one of the reviews is 8 paragraphs long and starts with, "I don't think I'll ever be able to escape Bad Mojo. I've been thinking about this game since the day I discovered it about 4 months ago, but I'm still not sure if that's a positive or a negative. In many ways, I wish I'd never discovered it. To this date, it remains the only game I've ever hidden from my Steam library. I have actively told friends to steer clear of it. So why on earth am I recommending it? Because plain and simple, this game is the most painfully real piece of art I've ever experienced." It's $6 on Steam, and I don't know who wouldn't get hooked by that review, so next payday, I think I'm going to try it out. Detention is a horror adventure game created and developed by Taiwanese game developer Red Candle Games on Steam. It is a 2D atmospheric horror side-scroller set in 1960s Taiwan under martial law. The game also incorporates religious elements based on Taiwanese culture and mythology. The game was released on January 13, 2017. The Steam About This Game section reads as follows. Greenwood High School, located in a remote mountain village. Two students found themselves trapped and vulnerable. The place they once knew has changed in unsettling ways, haunted by evil creatures. To escape, they must explore the mysterious campus filled with ominous objects and puzzles. How will they survive this ever-threatening environment? Could they return to safety in one piece? The game's $12 on Steam and has overwhelmingly positive reviews. The game is also available on the PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and Android via the Google Play Store. Galarians is a 1999 survival horror game developed by Polygon Magic for the PlayStation in the vein of the Resident Evil series. The key difference between Resident Evil and Galarians is that Galarians doesn't use gun-based combat, but instead uses psychic powers, which makes it difficult to fight more than one enemy at a time. The game follows Ryan, who has several types of psychic powers at his disposal. He's able to use telepathic senses in order to gain clues to solve puzzles, gain access to areas, or to understand and gain story snippets. His offensive powers are activated via drugs. Because the number of vials of drugs in the game is finite, conservation is important. Ryan's offensive powers have a 1 to 2 second charge time, making it important to find a safe interval before launching an attack. Enemies do not leave items, and Ryan does not gain experience for fighting them, encouraging the player to avoid combat where possible. There are 3 gauges that regulate Ryan's statuses. A health meter that depletes if he takes damage, the absorption point meter that counts up when he takes damage, uses abilities, or is under stress, and a drug meter that depletes as Ryan uses his powers. When the absorption points meter is full, he loses control of his powers, releasing a continuous psychic assault that will kill non-boss enemies in a single blow. This condition is fatal, however, if he uses it for too long. The game, from what I can tell, isn't available anywhere besides the original PlayStation. Okay, so the last entry in this video is long, being 2 pages by itself. Rule of Rose is a survival horror game developed by Punchline for the PlayStation 2. Set in England in 1930, the plot revolves around a 19-year-old woman named Jennifer who becomes trapped in a world ruled by young girls who've established a class hierarchy called the Red Canyon Aristocrats. It was first released in 2006 by Sony of Japan. The game's director described the game as essentially an interactive movie. The game centers on the traumatic childhood memories of Jennifer, an ordinary, vulnerable girl. Every level of the game takes place over a month. Each chapter begins with the reading of a homemade storybook related to the plot of the chapter. Early in the game, Jennifer encounters and rescues a dog named Brown. Brown accompanies her throughout the game and responds to the player's commands. Brown can be ordered to track items by scent, be commanded to stay, and be called to Jennifer's side. Brown cannot, however, attack enemies, but will growl to distract some imps and bosses, allowing Jennifer to retreat or attack without fear of retaliation. The game, while being published by Sony of Japan, was not published by Sony in Europe or the United States, because they said they didn't want to tarnish their brands. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this game. The game was only produced once, never remastered, and the cheapest English version that I can find is $600, with some going as high as $20,000. It's considered one of the rarest games of all time and is banned in multiple countries. The game has a cult following and is considered a masterpiece of artistry and storytelling and one of the best survival horror games ever made. With that being said, let's talk about the plot. On a late-night bus ride, a 19-year-old Jennifer is given an unfinished storybook by a mysterious boy, but he runs away before she can return it. While following him into the dilapidated Rose Garden orphanage, Jennifer finds a dog collar in a shed and witnesses a few masked children beating a bloody sack. She infiltrates the abandoned orphanage, where a funeral is announced over a loudspeaker. The mysterious boy claims that the funeral is for her dear friend. After attending the funeral, Jennifer unearths the coffin and finds the bloody sack inside, but before she can investigate it, the masked children force her into the coffin and carry her onto an airship. Jennifer wakes up as a captive of the mysterious boy, who introduces himself as the Prince of the Red Rose. Jennifer is forcibly inducted into the club called Red Rose Aristocracy, who require monthly gifts as tithes for the Prince and Princess of the Red Rose. Failure to provide the gifts results in punishment through humiliation and then eventual sacrifice to the entity called Stray Dog. The prince also gives Jennifer a few handmade storybooks to help recover her forgotten memories, and then releases her to participate in club activities. Jennifer is suddenly taken off the airship by a strange man, Gregory Wilson, who abandons her in a rose garden. She follows him into the basement of his home, where she discovers a stuffed bear, more handmade storybooks, and letters between her friend Wendy and a boy named Joshua, who address each other as Princess and Prince respectively. Wendy rescues Jennifer from the basement after taking Gregory's gun to prevent him from self-death, and trades her rose-shaped brooch for the stuffed bear that Jennifer found. Back on the airship, the club is in a state of emergency trying to find the stuffed bear, which has been presumed stolen. Amanda, one of Jennifer's friends, is revealed to be the thief, but she betrays and frames Jennifer as having stolen the bear in order to gain a higher rank in the club. The club attacks Jennifer in retaliation, who wakes back up in the orphanage. All of the children from the airship are there, but they either ignore or harass her, except for Wendy. Jennifer later learns that her and Brown the dog are now wanted as the monthly gift, and then both Wendy and Brown go missing. Jennifer follows a bloody trail to the attic and discovers Brown's corpse in a bloody sack. The Princess of the Red Rose approaches Jennifer, revealing herself to be Wendy, and that she is the one responsible for ordering Brown's death. Outraged, Jennifer slaps Wendy and throws away her brooch, denouncing the club and herself for not standing up to the bullying. Wendy leaves, humiliated. Now, without a leader, the orphans elect Jennifer as their new princess. But before she can decline, they see Wendy outside and leave to chase her away. Hearing their screams, Jennifer follows them and encounters Wendy, disguised as the prince and leading Stray Dog, who was mentioned earlier. Wendy confesses to having Brown killed out of jealousy and explains that she manipulated Gregory, the guy from earlier, into becoming Stray Dog by disguising herself as his son Joshua and used him to massacre the aristocrats out of revenge. Wendy gives Jennifer the gun that she had stolen earlier in order to stop Stray Dog and then is killed by Gregory. Mistaking Jennifer as Joshua, Greg asks for the gun and then shoots himself out of grief. Jennifer wakes up as her child self and realizes that all the events that have occurred were in fact her distorted memories of her childhood. Before meeting Wendy, Jennifer was kidnapped from an airship wreck by Gregory and made to live as a boy in order to replace his deceased son, the real Joshua. Wendy discovered Jennifer living under the identity of Joshua. She rescued and brought Jennifer to the orphanage for companionship, and together they formed the Red Canyon Aristocrats as a means of escapism, with Jennifer as Joshua being the prince and Wendy being the princess. They made a loyalty oath to each other and exchanged Jennifer's bear for Wendy's brooch. Soon after, Jennifer adopted a puppy named Brown, and she started to neglect club duties in order to care for him. Having become jealous of Jennifer's love for Brown, Wendy demoted her from her position of prince and replaced her with a stuffed bear, Joshua. When ordering the other orphans to torment Jennifer didn't dissuade her, Wendy ultimately ordered Brown's death and to try to force Jennifer's submission. Within her memories, Jennifer locates Brown inside the shed, gives him the collar bearing his name, and inscribes her oath to Wendy on the chalkboard. Vowing to protect her memories of everyone, she leaves the shed and closes the door behind her. So as I mentioned, this game is banned in multiple countries, and it's because they say it depicts violence towards children, because, you know, everyone, like, you play as a 19-year-old girl who kind of becomes a child, and everyone else is living in an orphanage, and you're all children. So it's banned in multiple countries, and as I said, I don't know if this is a game that you can even, like, find a ROM for, but like I said, the cheapest I can find it online English version is $600, and you have to have a PlayStation 2. People are selling, like, the box without the game for like $100, and people are buying it. It's crazy. There are full gameplays on YouTube, and as the director had mentioned, it's pretty much just a interactive movie anyway. So why spend $600 to $25,000 when you can watch someone else play it? In my opinion. Anyway, that's the end of part 1 of tier 3 of the Disturbing Video Games Iceberg. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.